Um, I could spend my time this morning talking about all sorts of developments, particular developments in the law, in the guidelines, Dodd-Frank, and no doubt you will be spending a good portion of your time and have spent a good portion of your time talking about those things in detail and hearing about those issues from people who are a lot smarter than I am. At conferences like this one, I prefer to speak a bit more broadly and generally. I prefer to take a step back and talk about first principles of ethics, first principles of integrity, first principles of corporate culture. Some of the most egregious frauds we have seen in my own district sadly occurred at institutions with seemingly robust compliance programs, at least on paper. And these are not, as you may know from reading the papers, fly-by-night outfits. We have seen egregious criminal conduct at some of the most prominent and powerful publicly traded companies, consulting firms, accounting firms, and even law firms. They include IBM, Intel, McKinsey, just to name a few, and some of the folks who have been convicted in my district alone came from the best business schools in the country. And of course, we've also seen egregious misconduct on the part of high-flying money managers on Wall Street. Many of the miscreants that I'm talking about are not mid-level. We have seen criminal conduct at every phase, every step in the food chain, including at the top. To be sure, there are bad apples everywhere, but an apple is more likely to rot in certain climates than in others. And in too many places and in too many quarters, there seems to have taken root a culture of minimalism. By that I mean a culture of merely aspiring to the minimum, doing merely the minimum required to avoid an enforcement action or a criminal charge, rather than focus affirmatively on doing the right thing, staying comfortably clear of the line, and earning a robust reputation for integrity and honesty. Now, before going any further in that vein, let me tell you about our first principles in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. You should expect from us what I expect every day from every assistant in my office, and in fact is expected of every Department of Justice prosecutor around the country: engagement in the wise and just exercise of discretion and judgment. I expect the assistant U.S. attorneys in my office to be open-minded, fair, and supremely principled in how charging decisions are made and how dispositions are handled. At the same time, I expect them to be tireless in discharging the duty that the taxpayers pay them to perform. We should be fearless in bringing righteous cases no matter the public outcry, and we should be fearless also in walking away from cases no matter the public outcry in the opposite direction. In a word, to do justice. And when we fail in that sacred obligation, we should rightly be held to account. Good faith, moreover, is and always has been a full defense to criminal prosecution. People should have notice of what conduct is illegal, and we only target those who know full well that what they were doing was breaking the law. We are not in the habit of prosecuting individuals who in good faith came close to the line. But though contrary to some other suggestions, we are not anti-business or anti-Wall Street. We bring specific charges against specific individuals. We are sensitive to the delicate nature and special circumstances of investigations of companies. We have to be. We understand that commencement of an investigation into a business, especially a financial institution, is like rolling a grenade through the front door. And so we spend a lot of time, I don't know that people realize this, we spend a lot of time discussing in our office the right way to proceed in white-collar investigations. But that said, while we are sensitive to collateral consequences and do not ever want to inflict undue harm during a legitimate investigation, no one should expect immunity from inquiry because no one is above the law. What do I mean by first principles? I'm speaking in very basic and fundamental terms about integrity and honesty and fair dealing. And I have found over time that there is never any redundancy in repeating and reinforcing the need for and importance of integrity in any enterprise. Simple things, in fact, bear repeating. I think we too often assume that everyone in our orbit is like us, that everyone understands the central importance of integrity. We too often presume that everyone cares about it. We too often think that just because the boss has a well-known reputation for integrity, that even the newest and youngest hires, who are especially vulnerable, to all the financial pressures to perform and outpace the competition will come to understand and obey that ethic through some process of osmosis. But I'm not sure that's true. Here is the estimable business professor, Walter Bennis, who has written many books over the years for business leaders. In one, he writes this, quote, "One thing that has become clearer than ever to me is that integrity is the most important characteristic of a leader, and one that he or she must be prepared to demonstrate again and again. They forgot that something's being legal doesn't mean it's right." Note, by the way, that Professor Bennis did not say that leaders must be prepared just to talk about integrity again and again. They must be prepared to demonstrate it again and again. The best conceived compliance programs and practices and policies in the world will be too weak to stave off scandal if the core principles are not internalized, if there's not from the top a daily drumbeat for integrity. The particular phenomenon that I talk about and that worries me and that should worry you and trouble you is the impulse in many business circles to walk the line, to aspire, as I said, to the bare minimum. To my mind, it is like a driver constantly trying to gauge just how close to the legal alcohol limit he can come without getting a DUI. Now, you can do that, but how long do you think before that driver gets pulled over? How long before that driver blows the legal limit? And how long before that driver hurts someone on the highway? Aspiring to the minimum is a recipe for disaster. Now, as was mentioned in the introduction, you may know that my office does a lot of white-collar cases. We bring a lot of prosecutions. But notwithstanding the flourishes of the occasional journalist, I am not the sheriff of Wall Street. In many ways, all of you are, and the sheriff of business, big business, medium-sized business, small business. Long before an office like mine commences an investigation or issues a subpoena, people like you in this room will have had innumerable opportunities to guard against corruption. You will have had opportunities to establish better practices, better self-policing, better transparency, and to otherwise foster an ethic of integrity, candor, and responsible restraint in industry, and to convince those who need convincing that this is also usually just good business. The disturbing truth is that in the shadow of most massive frauds are lurking all manner of enablers, people who were helpful either to the perpetration of the fraud or to its concealment. Part of your job is to disable those enablers and ring the alarm bell early by shouting from the hilltops that business catastrophe awaits if attention is not paid and action is not taken. In fairness, sometimes these time bombs are ticking in silence and in secret, only to be revealed when handcuffs and arrest warrants materialize. But often, people know something is awry. Often, people know something is amiss. There are signs, there are red flags. Sometimes those red flags are downright crimson. At the end of the day, we are all on the same side, I believe. You and your clients and firms are in business because you believe in the market. We believe in the market too. But efficient markets depend on good information and honest dealings. A cheater, someone who trades on inside information, who manipulates the market or makes misrepresentations, cheats not simply the market, he cheats you and your firms individually and offends the principles of the market that your clients and your firms presumably live by and make their living on. Part of my hope and faith in the salutary role of lawyers derives from my own abiding faith in the noble ideal of the legal profession. I often say there is no one better situated to promote equality, preserve liberty, and prevent cruelty than the person who has genuinely dedicated himself to becoming both a master and a servant of the law. Add to that the power to steer corporate actors toward a permanent course of integrity and honest conduct. I believe there is a material difference between being a good lawyer and being a great lawyer. And along the way, the great lawyer, in part by setting an example, plays a vital role in setting a course for integrity and therefore long-lasting and stable success for the client wise enough to pay heed. And so the truly great lawyer, motivated by conscience, guided by principle, and empowered by training, can serve as the greatest antidote, in my view, against scandal and corruption. In the end, the good lawyer makes a living, the great lawyer makes a difference. Thanks very much.